Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisholm, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com.
Hey guys, let me ask you a question. What is the one question that every aspiring songwriter has? Well, I think you already know it because you're asking yourself, how do I get my songs out there? If you listened to last week's podcast, you remember that I talked about out there, this kind of weird no man's land of where is out there. And I think we identified that it's where you are. You start where you are and you start using your songs, these things that you're passionate about, you're called, you use them in your church, you start where you are. That's where out there begins. At least conceptually, we talked about that. And so today, my guest is my podcast producer, Peter Hartzell of Treehouse Media. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks, man.
So we're going to be talking about how you get your songs out there and the key things that you need to know now in order to take some bold steps and get your songs out there where you want them to be heard for the songwriter that you believe you are. So, hey, it's going to be a great show today. But before we get into that, I have something I want to give you. I want to share with you some things that are going on that I think you're going to be interested in, and give you a free download PDF of our Song Builders Blueprint. I'll tell you how to get that in just a moment. But hey, we've got our next Song Revolution workshop coming up October 17th through 19th right here in Nashville. It's our one live event. You know, everything we do, our coaching, all the things that we do with our webinars and workshops are online, except for the Song Revolution workshop. You might have heard us talk about the NCS Weekend Intensive. It is now called the Song Revolution Workshop. We're kind of tying it in with this podcast. We're already filling up. It's exciting. October 17 through 19. We've already got confirmed John Mays of Centricity Music, which is the home of Lauren Daigle, Jason Gray, Johnny Diaz, Carrollton, Andrew Peterson, Is He Worthy, and so many more great artists. We get to actually go into Centricity Music, have a barbecue dinner, hear from John Mays. And back in January, Jason Gray stopped by. In July, Centricity full-time songwriter Ross King stopped by to share what it's like to be a songwriter for Centricity. It was so cool. So how often do you get to go into a record label and hang out with the founder and the A&R director? Well, probably not all that often. So October 17th, we're going to be having a barbecue dinner over at Centricity as part of the Song Revolution Workshop. We are limited to about 30 attendees, so I encourage you to go over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com/Song Revolution and sign up today. These spots are going to go fast, so we sure want you to grab one and come visit with us. Peter will be hanging around with us. John Mays, Tom Jackson, who has worked with about every Christian artist that you can name. He's a live music producer. He doesn't go into the studio and produce, but he works with them on stage and teaches artists how to build moments out of their songs. And he's going to do that for you at the Song Revolution Workshop. He's worked with, I can't even name all the Christian artists he's worked with. He's worked with Lecrae and Shawn Mendes and even Taylor Swift. So this guy is top shelf. We've got Kenneth Turner West, who is a professional full-time songwriter for Curb Word Entertainment. And this girl is on fire. She's so cool. She is amazing. Everybody loves Kenna. She's got 37 number one hits and counting. I don't know how many songs she's had recorded, but she is just one of our great clinicians. We've got David Baroni, who is an amazing coach, one of the sweetest guys you'll ever meet. He and I wrote a song together years ago called Oh Mighty Cross, and it's in a couple of hymnals, and we're not even dead yet. You're going to love David. We've got Rob Frazier. Rob is former member of the band Petra, just a fantastic coach, great songwriter. And you know what, Peter? He's got a song on Orange is the New Black.
Cool factor.
I know,
Big time,
right?
cool
And
factor.
so you're going to love Rob. Everybody loves Rob. So we have a great roster of NCS coaches and clinicians that you just don't want to miss. So jump over to the website, check out the Song Revolution Workshop, grab your spot today, and we'll see you in October. So a little bit later in the show, I'm going to give you the download link for the Song Builders Blueprint, which is kind of the diamond in our Song Builders Blueprint course, which has about 12 hours of training. It's really 30 years of my experience and expertise brought into a course that is really helping a lot of our clients understand how to craft the songs that they really can. I mean, it kind of ramps them up to be heard at a much higher level. So we're going to be giving away this 10-page PDF that I think will really be a blessing to you. So we'll be sharing that at the end of the show. So check that out. So let me go ahead and get into our content today and welcome Peter Hartzell of Treehouse Media. Hey, Peter.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
Oh, man. Hey, thanks for letting me pop over to your studio and sound really pro. I love
Absolutely.
this. I'm kind of jealous. I'm going to have to get a better rig. So, and on top of that, some good coffee.
Very good coffee. Yep, we get our coffee imported from our hometown in Montana because we just still have yet, no offense to the coffee in Tennessee, but we have yet to find the perfect bean in Tennessee since we've been here. So we have our favorite blend from Black Coffee up in Missoula, Montana, and we have that ordered in every week.
Missoula. Wow. Missoula coffee.
Missoula coffee.
Very cool. Well, listen, you've been with us now for 6 months or so.
A little over 6 months.
And we're just about to get up to our
100,000 downloads. Yep.
Can you believe that?
It's pretty crazy. When I look at the metrics from this show has always been pretty consistent, but when I look back at the metrics since we started working on the show together and to see, get the responses from you guys that are listening and the feedback from people around Nashville on the show and, people that I had no idea even listened to the show.
Right.
That have been listening for a long time, listening before I even jumped in. And then they'll come to me and say, hey man, you're doing a great job with this show. It's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah. Well, the first time I met you at church and hey, sidebar here, you and your wife, Amanda, did such a great job leading worship on Sunday.
Yeah,
so big shout out to the Gate Community Church, Pastor Steve Fry, Steve Garrett, all the wonderful people there at the Gate. But I met you at church, and you're like, hey, I heard your podcast and I think I could help you. And I'm like, okay, who is this creep? I mean, it's like, okay, well, fine, you want to help me, but I didn't need the help, right?
Right.
And then suddenly I needed help and I reached out
Perfect
to
timing,
you.
yep.
And the thing that impressed me about you is that you're a marketing guy,
Right.
you're trained audio engineer, you've worked with some very impressive people, and you just have this mindset that has really helped take our show to a higher level. So you've really brought a lot of value, and you're kind of fun. So it's
I appreciate
really
that. That's if it's not fun, I feel like if it's not fun, it's not worth doing. So
I know, right? Man, that's a real value to me too. It's like the fun factor's got to be high, or I get bored with it really quick and move on. So you've been helping to bring structure and some organization, but some real exposure and marketing to what we're doing with the show. And I love what you're doing with Treehouse Media. So I thought it'd be really cool today if we help bring some value to our listeners based on what I was saying in the intro about where is out there. And so we're going to get into that. But maybe you could give us a little insight into who you are, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. I think we've sort of touched on this on previous episodes. So if you look my name up, I think I was the first, when I first started working with you, that first week was our first episode together.
I know, right?
Because you needed an interview. So you said, hey, would you just be my guest?
Desperation.
So we started off, so I think I shared this a little bit, but my background is in marketing and in audio production. I got into this whole world of podcasting a couple years ago, and I honestly was never into podcasts. I didn't hate podcasts. I just never listened to podcasts, but I did listen to talk radio a lot back in Montana when I was working for my dad's company, and I was driving a delivery truck. So I would listen to talk radio, ESPN radio, and Rush Limbaugh, and even some of the people on the other side of the aisle. And just, I loved the format and the idea of sitting down and having time to tell a story. And, you know, whether it was a good story or not didn't really matter. It's just the format and the idea of talk radio really has always just kind of been this thing that I've just always thought about. And so when I got into podcasting, it was a natural merger between my passion for audio production, my passion for storytelling, and conversations with people, and getting to kind of pull some layers back and get to hear, you know, in our world, we're talking with a lot of musicians and people in the music industry. And I actually had started my own podcast called The Sound Mind. And that was really what I was doing, sitting down with guys and saying, okay, we've heard your normal thing, your normal shtick, but let's take some layers back and let's dig deeper and find out what got you to this point. So I didn't think that I would ever be able to do this full time. I didn't really believe that there was anybody out there that would want to pay me to help them produce a podcast. And then when I first got, I got an offer to produce and help Sadie Robertson start her show. And it was
that's the Duck Dynasty.
Yeah. And it was kind of like, oh yeah, I guess I could get paid to do this. And I had already done a couple of shows or editing some shows for people, but I was just charging, you know, pretty low rate just to cut audio together. And then I realized this is actually going to be more involved. It's going to include more production. It's not just me, you know, editing, moving faders, but more production. And it kind of opened my eyes to this world that I really can do this. And I do have a lot of the skills necessary from my background in media arts in school. I went to school for business, marketing, and audio production. So I have I wear all these hats, and I've got all this experience, and I can do all these things. And within the last couple of years, I've really started to figure out how they all fit together.
Right.
So when we kind of finally landed on an agreement to work together, it was kind of a settling of a lot of things for me too, of this is really a lane that I fit well in, and I don't have to put down my marketing hat in trade for my artistic, you know, I can keep them both on and not look funny.
That's so cool. And that's really what was so attractive to me too, because, you know, we have wonderful marketing people whom we love, but you know, you come at this thing with the perspective of how can I build the show? How can I bring value to the show? You've helped open some doors, you know, and you're really just upping the quality of the thing, leveling us up. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think in a way, I mean, that's what a lot of our listeners are facing too, because here they are with their songs. They've poured their blood, sweat, and tears into these songs. They have a passion and a calling. They want to get their songs out there. In the other shows we've done together, we talked about some concepts that maybe we should revisit that you felt were important. And then after, maybe later in the show, after our break, I'd like to break it down to some real practical steps.
That's great.
Exactly what these guys need to do, because some of them really are at that place where they're ready to invest in this kind of their social media, you know, but they just often don't know how. So I want this to be extremely practical. But do you remember from the last shows, you know, what I know consistency was one of them, just being consistent with what you're doing in social. So can you recap some of that for us?
I think that is always kind of at the core of when I do consulting now. I always start with consistency, because in my experience, that's the one thing that even if you don't have, you know, a big budget to do big video production or big audio production, or have a producer on staff or whatever. Like if you're an independent songwriter, you're probably sitting in your bedroom with your guitar or your piano, and you have a cell phone. And for a couple bucks, you may be able to buy a little clamp to put that cell phone on a tripod, and you could set your phone up and record yourself doing songs. And so you don't necessarily need a big budget to do that. To start a YouTube channel, to start a Facebook. But if you have all those things in place, but you're not using them and you're not being consistent with, we talked about consistency in writing daily, with writing with other people, and also sharing what you have with other people. And, but to be honest, like, you know, the main reason Justin Bieber got discovered on YouTube was because he was putting YouTube videos out pretty consistently.
Exactly.
And it wasn't like he was trying to market himself. He was just excited to, you know, he was a kid. He was a kid, and he was like, he liked to sing. And, you know, his parents were like, hey, these are great. Let's put these online. And so to me, if consistency is a job or a chore to you, if you think of it more as something you have to do, then I think you've got some priorities a little bit out of balance. Why are you trying to share? We can get into this, and this is probably dipping into what we're going to talk about today, which, I mean, if we want to just go there, we can. But I think that a lot of times, and I've been this way in the past, when it's something I'm not completely committed to or really passionate about, I have a hard time getting the motivation, you know, which is obvious. I mean, if you don't enjoy, if you're, like I said a minute ago, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it.
Exactly. Right.
Sometimes there's things that aren't fun, but you know, I need to push through this in order to get to the next level. And that's different. It's not what I'm talking about. It's more, I'm passionate about writing songs and I want to get out there. But if your motivation is just to get famous, then there's going to be this striving element always kind of following you around.
Isn't it true?
And if your motivation is, I know that these songs that I'm writing, even though they may not be perfect, I know that these songs are coming from a real place. And I genuinely feel like if I can just get these out so people can be blessed by the song, then if they get discovered and picked up, that organically, that's amazing.
I know, right?
And usually that's how it happens. It's the people that aren't trying to get discovered that get discovered.
It's true.
And the ones that are trying to get discovered always get passed over.
I know, frustrated.
It's the weirdest thing, and you can't fake it. Like you got to get to that deep place in your heart where you're not trying to build your own thing, where you're really just like, man, this is what I was created to do. And if nobody ever hears a song, I'm totally okay with that. You
do it no matter what. And I've had so many people, or a good, strong handful of people, even that I've worked with, you know, that have said, I just want to write for the masses. And it's like, well, you know, you can't write for the masses. You have to write for you. You have to write for God. You got to write for the people that are around you. And then if it's, you know, like you just said, man, I mean, if it's authentic and genuine and cool enough, and, you know, that people, you know, may start picking up on it, but it's got to be from that deep heart place that you just do it no matter what.
I think too, like when I think of the songs that are my favorite, the ones that I listen, that I go back to, that, you know, even if I don't have, even if it was a scaled back, stripped down, just the songwriter and their guitar or piano, it would be just as impactful as with a full orchestra. Mm-hmm. And I think about what makes those songs special, and or think about some of the songs in the past. Think about "Shout to the Lord." You know, I mean that song put Hillsong on the map. They were not writing that song to put Hillsong on the map. You know, and you know, I think Darlene Check was what, like 13 years old,
probably,
like
yeah.
And so that, like, if you think about, like, if you just stop for a second and kind of go back to all these songs in the church that have become iconic or era making kind of songs, and then go back and look at the story behind it, I guarantee you every single one of them was written in obscurity, or written in this place of, this is my heart, and people connect with that.
Yeah.
Now there are songwriters out there that do understand the formula. They understand how to write a good song, and they've usually partnered with. I mean, you look at a lot of these songs now. There's 8 or 10 writers on the song, and they're all great songwriters that probably could write that song by themselves, but they're collaborating with other people for a reason. Part of it is mailbox money, but the other part of it is because they know the value in partnering together. And, you know, if we have 8 of us that are all great songwriters, put our heads together to put this song out, it's going to be that much. It's going to have the social equity from the relationships of each songwriter in that group. And it also is just going to have that friendship community vibe that you're not going to get from an independent individual.
Exactly.
So when we talked about consistency in the past, we were talking about, you know, posting your stuff out there and engaging with your audience consistently, but also writing with other writers consistently. Don't, and again, the if it feels like a chore to you, then I think you need to reevaluate, why am I doing this? Not to say you're not supposed to be doing this, but take a step back and say, why am I doing this? Let me find the joy and the motivation that is built into this thing, and then write from that place.
Exactly. Well, my big, you know, soapbox, Peter, is that every half hour, 18,000 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube alone, right? And you know, a bunch of that's music. And so I've had this little phrase I've bandied about that we are awash in a sea of mediocrity,
Yep.
and I stand by that. And so what we try to do with the clients we work with and through our workshops and this podcast and the articles, everything over at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com, everything, our coaching is all geared to help you stand out. It's
right.
like consistency, yes. But the myth that all you've got to do to become a great songwriter is write a lot of songs, that ain't true, man.
No, not at all.
That is just not true. If you're not writing from a place of authenticity, yes, everybody's kind of, feels a love for their songs, kind of like the kids' watercolor ponies on the refrigerator. But, there's a difference between, a child's watercolor and a Rembrandt or name any great artist, right? So you got to learn how to do this stuff and then practice and then be consistent in getting it out there. So was there another element besides consistency that we've talked about in the past?
I know that we talked a lot about well, I guess it kind of goes hand in hand with consistency. You just sort of touched on it too, but practicing the craft and thinking of it in terms of, this is something that I'm refining. This is a tool, or these are tools that I can apply to become a better songwriter. And so becoming a member of Nashville Christian Songwriters is a step towards making that commitment for yourself to hone your craft. You have to invest some time and some money into the thing that you're passionate about pursuing. And a lot of us look at songwriting as a hobby, and some of us look at songwriting as an opportunity for a career. And so it doesn't really matter. I know a lot of hobbyists that spend a lot more money on their hobby than they do on anything else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, forgive me for interjecting here, but I read a lot of coaching books.
Good.
I'm in a season now where I've been called to share the expertise and experience and successes that I've had over a 35-year songwriting career, stumbling into town in 83 to take a job that fell through, homeless, $40 in our pockets, man. And then now all these years later, I've had the kind of success that I could not have even imagined. But as I'm learning to be a better coach, I actually have invested upwards of $20,000 in learning how to be a better coach, man. I'm going to a really cool workshop with another podcaster, Lewis Howes. I don't know if you know the School of Greatness, but love Lewis Howes, former NFL player turned lifestyle coach and entrepreneur, and very popular guy, millions of listeners. And he's doing a Summit of Greatness in September. And Brandon, our marketing guy, and I were going to road trip it up to Columbus, and I'm still investing. You know, I mean, you look at NCS and say, oh, well, they've made it. Well, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to make it, man. Good. It's like I got to make it every day. And so I continue to invest in myself with people I've spent mega bucks for me on learning how to be a coach and learning how to bring the best out of the songwriters that we get to work with. Yeah. Christian writers, I think, maybe everybody, but Christian songwriters seem to just want it to drop out of heaven. If we can pray enough and poke a hole in the heavens, then it's all going to fall down on us. And, yes, there is a sense of inspiration, but what we're trying to do is help people capture that inspiration by learning the craft, and you got to make an investment in that. So, I'm going to be really bold here and say that I continue to invest in myself. Even coaches need a coach. And so I'm thankful for the people. And, you can get coaching. I read so many great books. I'm an audible.com junkie, man. And I am so deep into this stuff right now. So just to kind of tag team on what you were just saying, that I think it's important. And we do offer NCS membership. It's very, very inexpensive. We do a masterclass every month. It's just powerful. 90 minutes live interactive. You get the archives. If you become a member, you get discounts and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So,
good.
So we got consistency and invest. Yeah. And was there anything else before we get to our OBQ today?
Sure. I think that was investing and also putting practical steps in action to what you're investing in. And you can invest all your time and money into going to great coaching events or reading great books or whatever, but if you don't actually apply what you're learning, and that, again, that is part of the consistency piece, but there is a practicality to, like I think I said earlier, sometimes you have to do the things that you may not feel like doing. It may not feel fun in the moment
every day.
But you know the difference between the things that you just have to do and the things that, are not in, you don't have the grace for, or that aren't. So yeah, I think they all are tied together. But I feel like a lot of people are, they have one of the three or two of the three pieces. But either they're going to be consistent about posting stuff, but there's no rhyme or reason to it, or they're practicing all this stuff that they're learning, but they're not doing anything with it. They're writing more songs, but they're not sharing them, or they're not getting out there. So you have to kind of bring all these things together and practice what you're doing, invest in yourself, and then get out there and share. I think
so, man. That is so good. And every week it's so true what you said about, every day you have to do something you don't want to do.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so a couple of stories, my friend Gabe down in Fairhope, Alabama, he and his wife, Mary Hopkins, they own a thriving dental practice. I mean, these guys are working 60, 70 hours a week, but they're also triathletes.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So biking, swimming, and running. And I asked them, now they don't have kids, so I mean, this is a little bit of a caveat, but I asked Gabe one day, I said, dude, how do you find time, to do all this? Because songwriters will say, well, I just don't have time.
Right.
It's like, well, and so Gabe, I said, how do you find time? How do you guys find time to bike or run or swim every day? And he looked at me, and in his own Southern way, he said, well, John, we just make time for the things that we want to do the most.
That's so good.
And I find songwriters sometimes say to me, well, I just don't have time. I'm working, I got kids, I got this, and this. And I'm like, okay, well, we all make time. We make time to watch Netflix. We make time to catch up on Chef's Table or whatever it is we're watching, which is a cool show. Yep. But, you can find the time to do what you want to do, and it does take doing some things you don't want to do, right? And so our pastor's wife, Nancy, every week when I show up at church, she pretty much says the same thing to me every week. She says, I just see you all over Facebook. You're just everywhere. And it's like, well, do you have any idea what it takes to be everywhere, right? Yeah. It takes a lot of work. So those are some cool things, the principles of consistency and investing and honing your craft. And so I think I got one more question before we take a break here, and it's what we call our OBQ.
Yeah.
And you brought this to our show, so I'm going to turn the tables on you here.
All right.
Our OBQ is the one big question, and it's usually something like, okay, what is the biggest hurdle you've ever faced in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Yep.
And so we can kind of talk on a business or personal level, spiritual level, whatever you want to share, man.
Yeah, and the follow-up to that question, when we have someone like we're going to be releasing an interview that we did with Phil Kagi and Rex Paul Schnelly in a few weeks. And when we asked them, I remember when we had them in the room and we're thinking about how do we ask this question, because of course that's a loaded question for someone like Phil Kagi, who's got 30 plus 40 plus years.
Oh yeah.
Actually, he started when he was like 13.
I know. I'm going to say that he's got 50 years.
I was going to say he's 50 years in. If you ask that question, we'd be there all day listening to stories. So the follow up to that is, what is the scarlet thread that's kind of been the anchor point in your career? So I'm going to take some liberty and kind of answer both questions because they do kind of tie together. My wife and I moved to Nashville officially about 5 years ago. And the journey of getting here has been just totally the Lord, but pretty crazy, and a lot of hurt and pain that we've had to work through. That's been very, on the other side of it, I can see the hand of God moving in our life. And so our personal testimony, which ties in a lot to what I'm doing, is all about God's faithfulness and his goodness. And even at the times where we didn't know or even understand that we were surrendering and trusting him to take us where he was taking us, we just felt his hand on us. And there were so many times where we didn't listen, and he was still merciful. You know, we didn't obey. We felt like we were supposed to move to Nashville in 2009. And my wife's mom was dealing with cancer, and it was right around that time when she passed away. And so moving would have been really tough, but we also really felt like the Lord was calling us to move, because we had sold our home and didn't have another home to move into. And there was a lot of things happening, and since we've been here, I look back, and had we moved here in 2009, there's a lot of things that we probably would have gotten into a lot quicker. But as we've been in Nashville in the last 5 years, there's been such a supernatural acceleration. I really genuinely feel like we don't have any lost time. Like the Lord has been so faithful to redeem, even in our fear. We didn't obey at a time where we felt like we were supposed to move, but the Lord in his faithfulness has redeemed that time. In the last 5 years, I feel like we've gone from this place of not really knowing what we're supposed to be doing. Why are we here? We still don't really know why God called us to Nashville fully, but I really do genuinely believe that the Lord really had for us to move to Nashville in order to be a voice and to speak into people in our sphere of influence, which a lot of times is people in the music industry. And the music industry is going through some big shifts and big changes. And I'm just watching connecting with you and this show, and connecting with like Tom Jackson and a lot of these other artists that we've connected with in the last few months. And also people outside of the music industry. And just seeing, it almost feels like there's a strategy going on, and I'm starting to see the pieces fit into place. A lot of that stuff I can't claim any credit for, because I was pretty dumb and naive, and I just didn't know. But I finally got to this point where I said, Lord, I know that if I take control of my own life, it's not going to go very well for me. And so I just have to trust you. And he's been so good at every turn. Even though there have been some painful moments and things that I had to learn from, or mistakes that I made, he's been so faithful to keep us in his mercy and in that groove. And so, I guess I would say my biggest hurdle, has been my own insecurity and my own, like me, feeling like I needed to be in control. And the moment, that I remember specifically, a moment where I was just kind of not like in the supernatural, or not supernatural, not in this like super spiritual place, but I think I was just driving around in the car, and I was like, God, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't control my own life, and I shouldn't be the one in charge. And so as scary as it is for me to say this, I trust you. I trust that you're good. And I trust that even though that means I don't know what's coming next, or I don't have any sense of like, I can't look back and say this happened because of me. I don't want to be there. I want to be at a place where in 5 years or 10 years, I can look back and say, look at what God did in my life. Wow. And none of it was by my own doing. And so that takes a lot of stress. And now that I'm building this business, doing Treehouse Media and working with clients, I don't have any stress when I go into a client meeting, because if it doesn't work out, I mean, of course I prepare and I do the things that I need to do to build my business. But I get to that point where I get the interview or the consultation, and then I say, all right, Lord, this is totally in your court now, and I'll do the things that I know I'm gifted to do. But if I don't get this client, I'm okay with that. I may really want this client, but if this is outside of, and there's, I think this, or you felt this, there's times where you're going down a path and you just kind of know this is not going to be fruitful, or this is going to be, and there've been a few times where I felt like the Lord was like, it's okay, keep pursuing this. And I needed to, in order to get some context and understand this isn't really the direction to go. And that's also been true for me, as I am a musician and I have written several songs, really getting to the point of surrendering what I thought that would look like. I thought at one point, I'm going to be doing full-time itinerant ministry and traveling around the Pacific Northwest. And I remember the day where that was around the same time where I said, Lord, I just surrender this. Like if you're not really in this iteration of this ministry, I don't want to be, I don't want to do it. And so he's taken us, it's been over 3 years since we've led corporate worship with the band. And then this last Sunday, we got to lead, and it was just, there was such an ease to it. And I wasn't like trying to impress anybody or.
Well, I was there, man.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And so before though, I would have had a lot of stress about that. And like, I gotta, I'm leading worship at this church in Nashville, and I gotta be impressive and I'm going to make it. And now I'm like, I don't care. I do. I mean, I care about, all of the craft and the practice, all the stuff, but I don't need anything else to affirm me.
Your ego wasn't tied up in it.
And I can't take any credit for that. It's like the Lord has just been, through surrendering, the Lord has just been taking those things and replacing them with a grounding and a sense of, so that I would say would be the scarlet thread throughout our story has been, God is faithful and he's good. And it doesn't matter what we're going through. I remember a time where we would be up and down and these big highs and low lows. And, when things were good, I was just waiting for that, that roller coaster to drop and hit a low point. And sure enough, as soon as I would start getting to that place of fear, something would happen and we hit this low point. And the last couple of years, I just was talking to my wife about this the other day. It's like, it's interesting since we've kind of gotten past that. There haven't been extreme high highs and extreme low lows. Everything's just good. I mean, even when it's hard, even when there's challenges, like we had our van door, our minivan, the door just fell off one day. And I think it has more to do with my mindset now. I'm like, well, we got to deal with it. Like I could sit here and bellyache and complain and God, why are you punishing me and all that stuff? Or I could just be like, that's rough. That's unfortunate, but we got to deal with it and just move on. Wow. So it doesn't mean circumstances have changed. It just means that our perspective has changed and trusting that God is faithful and he's good.
That's good. That's good, Peter. That's good, man. Well, it's so really kind of an overall surrender into the sovereignty and the goodness, faithfulness of God. And it reminds me, I did a show yesterday with Mike Donahue of 10th Avenue North. Okay. And he's got a brand new book coming out next week, and it's called Finding God's Life for My Will.
Wow. That's great. I love that title.
Isn't that great? Instead of finding God's will for my life, finding God's life for my will. And it sounds like that's what you and Amanda have done more of. So that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So when we come back after the break, I'm going to dig into 3 specific things that our listeners can do even now, practical level stuff, actionable, intentional stuff to get their songs out to a broader audience. Is that cool? Can we get to that after the break?
Love it.
All right. We'll see you guys in a minute.
We're going to take just a quick break and talk about something that I think is going to be very valuable for you as a Christian songwriter. So check it out.
Do you feel like God's given you a bunch of songs, but you don't know what to do with them? Do you feel like you've got a real call on your life to write, but you're clueless about where to start? Or maybe you've got writer's block and you're wondering if you'll ever get the creative juices flowing again. Well, we've got you covered with NCS membership. NCS membership is all about community and how to grow in this calling you feel deep inside to be heard. We get it. We know that you just want to honor God with your talents and be a good steward of what he's given you. And that's why NCS membership could be your next right step to grow, learn, be challenged, get connected, and ultimately fulfill your dreams to glorify God and reach others with the same passion you feel. It's designed to help you tell your story and to reach listeners who will love your songs. With your NCS membership, you'll receive 24/7 access to valuable masterclasses on topics such as modern hymn writing, worship writing, song form, lyric development, and recording home demos, as well as discounts for other NCS products and a deep connection into a community of creatives who get you. There are a lot of songwriters out there, so you need to be the best you can be to stand out, be heard, and become the songwriter you were born to be. Just go to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com now to check out all the great benefits of becoming part of a decidedly Christian community of songwriters from all over the world. NCS membership, your next right step to being heard.
Well, I just hope that you'll take advantage of that and check it out. All right? We bring you good stuff here on the Song Revolution podcast. So back to our episode.
Okay, so here I am. I have been through the NCS coaching. I have this bevy of songs that I totally believe in. I've invested in getting at least the best recordings that I possibly can of them, and I really believe in them, and I think it's time for me to take them to the world. And I come to Peter Hartzell at Treehouse Media. What's next, man? What does it look like, and what are the I don't know how many things, maybe 3 things that you would be working with me on to help me get my songs out to a broader audience?
That's a great question. I always start with this, I think I call it my why. What is the why? What is the purpose? What is the driving force behind what you're doing? And I try to filter, actually I don't try, I do filter every single thing that when I do consulting, I say, okay, I'll sit down and say, what is your why? Why are you doing this? What are you hoping to accomplish? What are the things that really get you going and get you excited about the songs that you're writing, the style, all that stuff? And what is it you're trying to communicate? Who's your target audience? All those things are kind of in this big question of what's the big why. And the reason I start with that is because that's going to be really the big key that's going to help determine what your personal brand looks like,
right,
and how we position you to get the best chance at getting organic following on social medias, your website, all that stuff, as well as when you do start actually promoting yourself and getting yourself out there. When someone comes to your Facebook page or they go to your YouTube channel or your website, they see consistent branding. They see this is John Chisholm, the songwriter. Right. And so one thing that I'll do, the first thing I do is I start with that question. And so if you're listening, if you can answer that question right now, that's great. That's amazing that you're already further ahead than 80% of the people
so
out there.
True.
But if you don't have that answer, then I can sit down with you and we go through a series of things to find out the answers to those questions.
Well, can I jump in with a quick story? Because Greg Nelson, who is an iconic Christian music producer, basically built the genre with Sandy Patty and Larnell Harris and Steve Green and Peebo Bryson and amazing people.
Wow, yeah.
He told me on a podcast that he has artists come to him with huge budgets and they don't even know their why.
That's true.
They just want to sing. They just want to make music, and he walks them through the same kind of process.
Yeah.
So I think you're spot on with that.
If you don't start with that, then everything if you don't have that anchor point in your in everything you do moving forward, then you're going to be fragmented in all of your energy and effort. You're going to spend a lot of money on things that are unnecessary.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you'd be spending money on the wrong things. It's just you're spending them in the wrong order,
sequence, yeah,
or the wrong sequence, or you're putting the cart before the horse. And so, if you don't have that figured out first, you're going to create. The further down the road you get with all these other efforts, you're going to get more out of balance. And eventually what's going to happen is you'll get to a point where you find out that you're actually targeting or doing something that's way outside of your passion zone. And it feels more like work than fun, right? Practically speaking, once we get those answers, then what I'll do is I'll sit down and say, okay, let's actually establish your brand. Let's get your logo and all of your colors and everything consistent. So whether they're on your Facebook or YouTube or your website or wherever, even at a show where you've got posters and a merch table, everything is consistent. It feels like you. And there's a lot of artists out there that kind of stuff changes from time to time. John Mayer his branding now is different than it was even a year ago. But he's got the luxury of having the name that is his brand.
Right.
So the visual stuff is more artistic and more fun. But there's several other, most major bands have their logo and their branding and their vibe is consistent. And when you see their name,
Aerosmith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Big colors and artsy and loud and, yes, that's a great example. So, and they've been around forever and they haven't changed.
Right.
So that would be like the first practical step. Then we go into the step of taking all of the content that you've got, videos, photos, whatever it is, getting your social media set up and optimized so that you do have the best opportunity to get organic followers. And then we start establishing weekly patterns and consistent patterns of releasing and publishing content, so that when people do come to your page, they're not getting stagnant or stale content. They're getting something fresh, and a lot of people have a hard time posting on social media every day, and that's okay. Rule of thumb to me is at least post something every other day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then, maybe something on the weekend too. But if you can do that, then you're going to stay in people's purview. I think that the social media accounts that are posting 3 or 4 or 5 times a day can get a little much.
Right. I've done it all, man. I've run the gamut of how many times, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and
that's stuff that I can manage for you, or I can create a plan for you and give you kind of a roadmap on here's some best practices and some things you can do. I try to meet people wherever they're at. And so if you're at a place where you've got a budget, you don't want to mess with it, I can handle everything. Or if you're at a place where you don't have much of a budget, but you need help, then I can come in and consult and give you some pointers.
That's cool.
So the consistency, posting stuff like that is a big piece. And then the third, I guess, if there was a third piece, it would be creating a plan for consistent content creation moving forward. Content creation is at the core of what I do. Video and audio for sure. And then of course graphics are part of that, the visual stuff. But one of my favorite things to do is record podcasts or to record video testimonials or even like video style podcasts where you're a talking head.
We're going to get there. Yeah. We're going to get there. I want to do that.
All that stuff is really, really good. And video to me, I mean, everyone knows video, how powerful video is, but I do have a few clients that are not in Nashville, and what they tend to do is they'll shoot their videos on their cell phone, or if they have a good camera, they'll send them to me, put them in Dropbox. I'll put them through my system and edit and add color and make them look good, and music and all that good stuff, make them look nice and polished, and then publish to social media for them.
Right.
And that works really well. But again, it really all starts back with what is your why, and then all the content that we create is going to always flow from that place, so that when you get 100 miles down the road, it still looks like your why. It doesn't look different. So
that's so cool. So overall, we're talking about identifying your core message, identifying your mission, we could say, and making everything flow from that core messaging.
And who your target audience is going to be a big determiner in what that looks like. Because if you're targeting, if you're primarily writing modern hymns and you're targeting an audience that's more in a liturgical kind of vibe, you're gonna brand yourself differently than if you're a Seventh-day Slumber and writing hard rock.
Right.
You're not going to be targeting or building an imaging. If you think about Seventh-day Slumber's branding versus Phillips, Craig and Dean or something else, they're polar opposite, and one speaks to a crowd better than the other. So. But again, that's part of establishing your why and figuring out who is my target audience, who is my ideal target audience.
Exactly.
Who's my avatar, like you say.
Yeah. Who are you serving?
Yeah.
With your music and your message.
Yep.
I'm working with a number of different clients. In fact, we're actually helping about 6 different clients establish ministries right now.
Yeah.
And one of them is a lady, hey Laura, and she's not too far from the Nashville area, but she came out of a cult about 1.5 years ago. Wow. And she feels a very strong call to reach back to people that are in that kind of a bondage. She felt like, she didn't know Jesus, the real Jesus, all her life. And 1.5 years came to know the Lord in a very dynamic way. And so we're working with her to establish, that's her why, is amazing. That she knows the real Jesus, and she wants people that are still in bondage to know him and to know him as she does. And so we're working with her to write songs to create a new CD. She's writing a book. She's establishing her web presence. And actually, I need to connect her with you, buddy. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so that's what we're working back on the song side, but what you do is take it from there.
Totally. And it's such a cool 1-2 punch, because if you, like for me, I understand the song side just as well as I do the other side. And so to me, it's not either or. It's definitely the song is so important, and the message in the song is the messaging in the song part of is that flowing out of your why as well. Like, you need to think about that when you're writing songs, and then coming from a place of, this is what I'm passionate. I love that story. I want people to know the real Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, is there a better why out there?
I don't think so, and so one of the things I'm doing with her is helping her see that it's not just about railing against the negativity of the cult, but that she came out of, but it's really about lifting up the real Jesus. That's what it's really about, because she doesn't want to spend the rest of her life railing against, the dark, the cult specific, right? She needs to be lifting up the real Jesus. And so it's just really working well. So what I'm hearing you say as we kind of begin to wrap this up today is that it all begins with the song and the core message, the why, but then that's when you step in. Once we've got that figured out kind of on our end, working through our coaching, membership, this podcast, our workshops, everything that we do, then when you're ready, you take it to the next level in establishing a brand.
Absolutely.
And you are positioned to do that both on a consulting level. What do they say? Do it yourself or done for you.
Right. Exactly,
So if you're a do it yourselfer, then you've got some options for our listeners who are ready for this, where you can coach them and consult them on how to do it. Or if they've got budget, then they can just hire you. You go do it all, right? Yep. And can this be for songwriters and artists, or what about the people who don't go out and sing? How does that work?
Man, that's good. I think that a lot of times we tend to forget about, like, I'm a musician, so I was a musician before I was a songwriter. I became a songwriter because I was a musician, and so I do tend to. But since we've been in Nashville, I've met just scads of songwriters that can't even play a lick on guitar or piano, or even sing. I've met a few and they're very honest about that. They're like, I just can't carry a tune, but they really know how to write a song. And so, in that sense, you're not trying to establish yourself as an artist. There's a difference between a musical artist and a songwriter. Those are two very different things. So as a songwriter, it's the same story. You're trying to establish your brand as a songwriter, but your target audience isn't going to be people that are interested in buying your music or streaming or whatever. Your target audience is other artists that want to co-write, or publishers, record companies. So you're still going to be creating a personal brand, and you're going to be establishing yourself with whatever vibe you feel like this speaks. This is me. But then you're going to be targeting different people. And so, same principle for sure.
It's kind of like a resume.
Yeah.
But you still have
digital business cards.
Yeah, you got to get out and promote yourself.
Right.
Sal Oliveri is a producer here in town that I've known for a long time, and he's working with some pretty big name people like Kathy Lee Gifford and Pink. He's got a great single out on Pink. And he had the greatest Facebook post recently. In fact, I turned it into a podcast. I turned it into an article. And he said, you are responsible to present yourself to the world. Yeah, and one of the sadly consistent tendencies that I'm hearing in the conversations I have with songwriters and singer-songwriters, artists, is that they want somebody to come do it for them. They want the cavalry to come over the hill and rescue them. But it's really not going to happen, you guys. Right. You are your own rescue. And people like Peter are sitting here with the goods to help you get your songs out there. But it does take an investment. It takes working through this and deciding how you want to present yourself to the world. So as we kind of bring this to a close, Peter, any closing thoughts on next steps for the people who might be listening to us today?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you can do, and this is totally free, is just sit down, maybe, get a cup of tea or something. Find a quiet moment where if you have kids, where your kids aren't screaming or whatever, go to a coffee shop if you need to, but really sit down and just ask the Lord what it is that he's doing in your life and how he wants to use you, as a songwriter or as an actual artist. God, how do you, where do I fit, and how do you want to use me? And you pour out your heart. You say, God, these are the things that I feel deeply and strongly about, and I want to serve you through this, but give me your perspective on this. And then when you feel like you get an answer, then you can sit down and say, okay, maybe start taking some notes, write down maybe the top 50 things that you hope to accomplish, or the kinds of things in a dream world. If you were to look back and say, man, I'm doing what I want to do, or I'm doing what was in my dream, write those things down and kind of envision what life would be like in that place. And then start paring down on that list and distill it down to the number 1 or 2 things that you really hope to accomplish. And that's going to really help you clarify what is my why, what is my driving, my anchor point, or my driving purpose. And then once we get to that point and you understand that, first of all, it's going to immediately help you in your songwriting, because you're going to write from a much more clear perspective. Then when you call me, you have a conversation with me about next steps, you've already done that part. And that's so important. It's just a good thing to have. I mean, even if you never ask for help,
right?
It's just a great thing to do that. And I tend to do that about every 6 months. Yeah. Because I'll sit down about every 6 months and I'll take some time and I'll just get in prayer and I'll really take a look back at what I've been doing over the last 6 months and what I want the next 6 months to look like. And, if you've never done that, today's a great day to do that. And then, and you'll get clarity, and you'll kind of know, okay, this is what I need to do next.
That's so cool. Yeah. A lot of times when I'm in a potential client call, I'll ask that question. I'll say, okay, if we were having this conversation a year from now and you're looking back, what do you hope would have happened with your music? And then that kind of helps us reverse engineer the steps, right? And if they don't have the budget for the big dog coaching stuff, well, that's okay. You can still do something right now. Absolutely. You can take an intentional step to get your songs out there.
You just got to do it.
You just got to do it, guys.
Gotta do it.
Hey, Peter, this has been so rich, man. Thank you for just jumping on the show today. Always love having you. You're doing such a great job for us. And we've got some great things ahead, man. Some great shows, 10th Avenue North, Phil Keggy, so many great people coming up, and you're just a big part of that. So thanks so much. Yeah. Everybody, thanks for listening today. Let me remind you that the Song Revolution Workshop is coming up October 17 through 19. We've got some amazing people. You're going to love it. It's going to sell out. So jump over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com/Song Revolution. Grab your spot today. If you register by October 10, you save $100, and that's always a great thing. NCS members save an additional $50, so you can get in at $645. So, man, jump on that today. We'd love to see you and have you come hang out with us in Nashville, October 17th or 19th. So, as promised at the beginning of the show, I have a 10-page PDF for you called the Song Builder's Blueprint, absolutely free. Just go over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com/blueprint, download it, and get on your way to writing great songs today. You're going to love it. In fact, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love for you to post over on our page at Nashville Christian Songwriters on Facebook. Let us know how you're liking the Song Builder's Blueprint. Again, Peter Hartzell, Treehouse Media. Hey, buddy, what's your contact? We should give them that before we close. How do they get in touch with you?
My website is treehousemediaco.com, treehousemediaco.com. My email is peter@treehousemediaco.com. And those would be the best ways to get in touch with me. If you go to my website, I have some samples of some of the work that I've done and just kind of a brief outline of what I do. But I typically do custom pricing for all my projects. I don't have one size fits all. I just found that everybody I talk to has such different needs.
Right.
So if you do have questions, just send me an email. I'll always give free advice. Love to talk with people and just find out where you're at. So send me an email, peter@treehousemediaco.com. Check my website out, and let's definitely have a conversation, though.
Yeah, get the conversation going, find out your why, and get your songs out there with Peter Hartzell, treehousemediaco.com. Buddy, thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
See you next time.
Hey, what a fantastic show today. I hope you caught all the value bombs that were dropped on this one and that you'll begin to immediately incorporate them into your songwriting. You know, you can get even more valuable songwriting tools and inspiration when you join NCS membership. You can become a part of a growing community of songwriters from around the world and tap into some of the most powerful resources available to step you up in your songwriting destiny. Check out NCS membership now at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com and get ready for some exponential power to help you fulfill your call to write. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.